Now that I got everybody selected, we're gonna do day 320. Okay, we're in business. All right, so today we're looking at 3117 in Southwest, Birmingham, Alabama, 35221. Let's say for $135,000, 4 bed, 1 bath. This looks relatively turnkey. Is there some carpet you get rid of? Yeah, you can do that, but not necessarily a must do. And if you're trying to keep your renovation costs down, then you might be okay for now until you turn over the unit. See, let's capture a nice flat lot, perfect house for home buyers, operating rent. Okay. Where are we? Okay, a little bit closer. So this is close to where I'm doing a 4 bedroom renovation. So this is going to be a good reference point. Yeah, a good reference. Says if it's going to sell for 135 grand, that gives me a better idea of what my property is going to be worth once I turn it into a 4 bed, 2 bath. Okay, so now that I got this property here, what I want to do is figure out whether or not this property is going to cash flow. So the first thing I need to do is figure out what the fair market rents are. And I'm going to get that by looking at the county. This is in Jefferson County. So I'm going to Google HUD FMR. FMR stands for fair market rents. And from that point onwards, I'm going to go to access small area FMRs, which stands for fair market rents. As we discovered yesterday, they just uploaded the 2025 small area fair market rents. So now all of a sudden you're going to get by bedroom count, by county, in Jefferson County, the rents for next year. And this is going to be in 35064. And you're going to see how the rent ceiling for a 4 bed has gone to 1640 now, not 1640. 1640 and then 1440, right? 064, 1450, excuse me. 1450. 35064. So this bodes well for the property that I have in this area because it's gone up basically $100, $200, which is amazing, right? And I got a little bit more upside. Now, even though I have my rent ceiling at 1640, I got to go and compare it to my market rent. So when I go to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, I plug in the address and the bedroom count under my market rent estimator, I can see that right now for 25 units within a 2-mile radius, your average rent is actually $1288. So obviously the market has not caught up to 1640 yet. So you can't charge more rent until the market is actually there. 1442 and 1475. But I like that because now the rent ceiling has gone up, there is room to move up the rents, right? So we can continue doing this and riding along the path of continuing to invest in this area. So now that I have my rents, I am going to pick up the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because I want to show you guys why I am using the lower of the two. So instead of 1640, which typically includes utilities, right, I'm using 1288. And that's because of a test called the rent reasonableness test. On this test right here, it says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA or the Public Housing Authority must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So obviously location, size, unit type matters. But because I know this is looking at the market for 4-bedroom properties, right, you don't typically see 4-bedroom apartments. So I'm pretty confident these 25 units right here are indeed single family homes. So I'm comparing apples to apples, right? So that gives me confidence it's 1288. And then from that point onwards, I've used the lower two because that's a more reasonable rent. You can't just charge more rent simply because they're a voucher holder. So that's why I'm using 1288 as my assumption. So let's go get the rest of my numbers here, right? This property is listed for 135 grand. So I'm gonna plug this in here in B4 for the asking price. For my renovations, I'm gonna go to my rehab calculator. I'm gonna come over here and I'm just gonna put aside a little bit of money. So usually I set aside about $1,500 for the roof just in case there's any issues. I got $500 for the landscaping, and I got 300 square feet. So that's less than 20%, less than 25% of the square footage that might need a little touch of paint. So I'm just gonna have a little bit of money set aside just in case there's anything that I couldn't see from the photos. I usually just turn whatever toilets they have into a high pressure flush toilet. So I'm gonna have that here. And then from that point onwards, that's pretty much all the renovations I need. So it gives me about a $4,200 rehab. Now this cell, 4,200 is gonna flow into B6. All right. The only reason it's 25 grand is because yesterday I was looking at a scenario and I was explaining how if your rehab 5x, what would your cash and cash return be? We can go through that scenario in a bit, but for now, we're just going to use 4,200. All right. So the rent I'm going to use is 1288 because that was the lower of the two, and that's in cell B16. For my property taxes, I am going to use 89. And then my 105 insurance is going to be 105. 105 times 1.2. Okay. So now you got 10% for your maintenance. You got 10% for your property management. So maintenance is going to be related to landscaping and setting aside money every single month for repairs or replacements that you know are going to happen, right? We all know a roof is going to get replaced every 15, 20 years. We all know that a air conditioner eventually craps out, right? 5, 10, 15 years, whatever that may be. Same thing with a water heater. Water heater might die after 7, 10, 15 years. So this is money that doesn't belong to you. It's money that you got to set aside right now because otherwise you would be overestimating your profitability because you're underestimating your expenses. So don't be that person. Don't have a big expense, 20 grand from like $20,000 for a roof replacement 20 years from now, and then realize you made no money. Don't be that person. All right, so I got 10% for property management, 5% for vacancy. So that leaves me with a roughly amount of $322 for expenses. All right, so now I have to go to my down payment, right? I got 25% in my F19 for down payment. My down payment amount is actually going to be my B4, which is my asking price, multiplied by my down payment percentage, which is 25% in F19. That's how you get to 33.75K. I got about 2.5% for closing costs. And then I got about another $4,200 for my renovations reserve, which we calculated earlier. And now I had to figure out, okay, well, what if I'm getting a loan at 8% right now for my DSCR loan? And that will give me a rough amount of approximately 100 grand financeable. So that's going to yield me a principal interest payment of 742. And after I add in all my expenses, right, if I am able to rent this property out for 1288, all right, so let's put this stuff in here. 4 bedroom, 1288. My cash flow per month is $8. So my cash and cash return is 0.2%. So that's not a deal, right? 135 grand, that's not a deal. But for now, you might be okay with it because of the fact that you're able to potentially buy a property that will slowly appreciate in cash flow. But for me, it's not a deal, right? And obviously, this is not an investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call, right? I like the fact that it can go from 1288 and has room to get to 1640, right? If this was ever 1640, obviously that's not the full amount. You could get to 8% return, right? But that's not the case today, right? You got to wait for the rent to go up in the market. Now, watch what happens as I lower my asking price. Because now I got to figure out, well, what do I need to buy this property for with a relatively turnkey property, right? It's only 4 grand rehab. What do I need to buy it for it to be a 10% return on the cash and cash? So if I put 100 grand right here, now it's in 7.6. If I go to $88,000, it's now 11.2. So I can afford to pay a little bit more. 92 grand. There you go. And $92,000, I will be cash flowing 9.9%. 9.9. That was a 92 grand rehab. So everything else stayed the same. 25% down, 8% interest rate. And this would allow you to cash for $245 a month if you rent it out for $1288. So that's how you know whether or not this is going to be a deal or not, right? You have your criteria. You can now take the emotion out of the analysis and stay solely focused on the numbers and what the numbers are showing you. And in this scenario, 9.9%, that's going to be a tough one. All right. So that's how you got to get it for $92,000 to get the same return. Now, let's just say, for example, you can get an interest rate at 7%, right? How much are you willing to pay for the property now, right? If interest rates do get dropped over the next couple of months, now your ability to pay a little bit more goes up. So now you can see why interest rates have such a big impact on the deal, right? As I turned the property from $92,000, right? So before it's 92 grand to 97 grand, I'm still 10.4% return. So now I can afford to pay $5,000 more and still get a higher yield, right? At $267 of cash flow a month because interest rates have dropped. And that's the effect that interest rates can have on your purchase price or your willingness to pay. Okay. Those are the few items that I really want to kind of go through and talk through with you all. Don't forget about the rent reasonableness test. And my hope today is that you copy my homework, right? Look at the same deal I looked at today using the same spreadsheet. If you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the get deal analysis tool, put in your name, email, your phone number, and that's the fastest way to get a copy of the spreadsheet. And from that point onwards, I hope you create your own YouTube channel. Put it on your own YouTube channel. Do exactly what I did. Explain it better because my whole goal around this is for you to develop the confidence that you know what you're doing. But more importantly, we create more affordable housing for more people in the world so that you have the confidence to pull the trigger when that deal comes across the table and slaps you across the face, right? I'm not naive. I know it takes sustainability to do this. And sustainable doesn't typically come from people reaching into their pocket every single month just to kind of do the right thing, right? Call those donations. All right. So have an amazing day. Thank you for joining for day 320. I'll be back here tomorrow for day 321. Have an amazing day, everybody. I'll be back here again tomorrow.